The hush comes over the room. It is noon, and we will call the meeting to order. Before we begin, I would like to welcome this month's Leadership Development Program participants. We are happy to have you. Please stand and introduce yourself. Tell us how long you've been at KUB and where you work.
Hi, I'm Mary Lee Metzger. I work in the procurement department and I've been here almost 3 years. Hello, I'm Sarah Yeagle. I have been at KUB for a year and a half and I am in the talent management department.
Very good.
I'm Daniel Griffey. I work in electric systems engineering and I've been here for 8 years.
Hello, I'm Misha Tate. I've been with KUB for 10 years and I work in customer service.
Hey, I'm Matt White and I'm in accounting and budget and I've been here for 6 years.
Thank you all. Mr. Coley, will you please call the roll?
Madam Chair, I'm pleased to report that all commissioners are present.
Thank you. The minutes from the November board meeting were sent to us for review. If there are no corrections needed, we need a motion and a second to approve the minutes.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye. Any opposed, say nay.
Aye.
Thank you very much. The minutes are approved. Now I'd like to recognize Commissioner Hamilton, Chair of the Audit and Finance Committee.
Commissioners, the Knoxville City Charter requires that the KUB Board hire an outside accounting firm to audit KUB financial records. The charter also requires that the auditor be approved by City Council after it is recommended by the board here. At the direction of the Audit and Finance Committee, a request for proposal was issued earlier this year. And after that proposal, we set up an interview process with the Audit and Finance Committee, and the committee voted unanimously to recommend that, subject to City Council approval, the KUB Board hire Malden and Jenkins, LLC, to provide audit services to KUB. I'd like to recognize Mark Walker, our Senior Vice President and Chief Financial Officer, to review the details.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Earlier this year, the Audit and Finance Committee did determine that beginning with audits to be performed in 2025, we would rotate to a new financial auditor that is consistent with best practices and consistent with our past practices as well, to rotate the audit firm periodically. I would like to acknowledge this 2024 marked the last year of our 10-year engagement with Coulter and Justice. And Coulter did an excellent job for us, and we had a good partnership with them. But like I said, consistent with our historic practice, we feel periodically we do need to rotate audit firms. So just going through briefly the selection process for this, as Commissioner Hamilton mentioned, this past summer we did issue a request for qualifications for professional audit services covering KUB's financial audit, our retirement system plan audits, and also the project help audit. We did receive 8 responses to our RFQ, and that was from local firms, regional firms, and also a national firm as well did provide us a submission to our RFQ. We had an internal team evaluate those submittals, and those results of the evaluation were shared with the Audit and Finance Committee at their October meeting. And based upon those discussions, the committee narrowed or shortened the list to 5 firms and directed staff to obtain pricing information from each of those firms. We did receive the pricing information that was shared with the committee at the committee's November meeting, and based upon those discussions, the committee did select 2 firms to interview for professional audit services for KUB. And those interviews were completed last Friday on December the 13th, and upon conclusion of the interviews, the committee did pass a resolution recommending board selection of Malden and Jenkins to perform audits for KUB beginning with 2025. We are anticipating that to be a 3-year engagement, and with renewal options, and still to be determined maybe how many years we would opt for renewal in the initial contract with them. That just for your information, from a pricing perspective, the annual cost for all of the audits, the 3-year average is around $168,000. To put that in context, we paid Coulter and Justice $217,000 for all the audits in 2024. So it is, the pricing that was submitted was very competitive. I'll also mention that does exclude travel costs because Malden and Jenkins does not have a Knoxville office. And just to give you a little bit of information about Malden and Jenkins, it is a firm that's been around quite a while, founded in 1918. They are considered one of the top 100 public accounting firms in the nation, and they have a staff of over 500 employees. They concentrate their practice in the southeastern United States. They have 14 offices spread throughout 6 states, with their headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia. One of the major points about Malden and Jenkins is they really have a specialization in auditing governments and municipal utilities. In fact, they have served over 725 such clients over their history. And some of the more notable names I included on the slide here that you would recognize, and many of these are our peer utilities: Electric Power Board of Chattanooga, Huntsville Utilities out of Alabama. They're both part of the Big Nine, the largest local power companies that buy power from TVA, so we're very familiar with them. Bristol, Tennessee Essential Services, and City of Morristown, and these are just a sampling of a few that are comparable somewhat in size to KUB and the types of utility audits on that. So I did want to note that, as I mentioned, they do not have a Knoxville office, so the audit team that will be doing KUB's audits will be staffed out of their Chattanooga office. Any questions on? Okay. So Resolution 1499, again coming as a recommendation from the Audit and Finance Committee, does request City Council approval of the engagement of Malden and Jenkins as is required by the city charter. It also authorizes the President and CEO or his designee to execute the contract for auditing services with Malden and Jenkins. And of course, there will be this transition period subject to City Council approval, that Malden will be working with Coulter and Justice to begin that transition process. And then we'll have the first round of audits probably in late spring on the retirement systems. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Resolution 1499 is before us for consideration with a motion for approval from the Board's Audit and Finance Committee. Therefore, we do not need a motion or a second from this board before voting. Are there any members of the public who would like to address the board on this resolution? Mr. Coley, will you please call the roll for the vote on Resolution 1499 on first and final reading?
Commissioner Caballero.
Aye.
Commissioner Feinbaum.
Aye.
Commissioner Gibson.
Aye.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Aye.
Commissioner Herbert.
Aye.
Commissioner Pickett. Commissioner Simpson Brown.
Aye.
Resolution 1499 passes on first and final reading.
Thank you. Now I'd like to recognize Gabe.
Thank you, Chair. Resolution 1500 is a resolution recognizing the pilots that we pay the City of Knoxville and other agencies and that we serve. I'd like to recognize Chris Hood, Vice President of Finance, to give you an update on the tax equivalent payments for this next year.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Today I'd like to provide you with an overview of the proposed payment in lieu of taxes or pilots for fiscal year 2025, along with present Resolution 1500 for your consideration. This resolution is a request to City Council to set for distribution the pilot payments for KUB's electric, gas, and fiber divisions. Start out with a summary, looking at our total overall payments for each of our five utility divisions this year. Those total right at $32 million. While that is a large number, if it does come with a silver lining, it's the fact that that's actually down $3.4 million from last year and down about $6.4 million from the amount we had budgeted. And you might ask, how does that amount go down when we're continually adding assets, when we're continually adding to our average operating margins? And that is because of the reduction by Knox County in the equalization rate this year. As you know, property values in Knoxville have been on the incline. When that happens, those equalization rates get stepped back in order for the county and city not to collect a windfall off the rising property values. When that happens, KUB gets the benefit of it. So, like I said, if there is a silver lining to $32 million of tax payments, it's the fact that we actually got benefit of that reduction this year in both city and county payments for those pilots. All right, so before we get into looking at the distribution by division and also to the taxing jurisdictions, start out with just a little bit of overview of the governance on tax equivalent payments. So state law behaves differently toward different utilities within the state. Start out with water and wastewater, where we find Tennessee state law to be silent to how these taxes should be calculated and to whom we should be paying any type of pilots to. So for water and wastewater, we depend upon city charter to outline that for us. For these divisions, we pay taxes only to the city of Knoxville. Those taxes are set by this board, and they're based simply upon the net plant value or the assets in those divisions. Once this board approves those, they are set to be paid the last business day of February. Conversely, electric and gas, very different. State law is very specific as to how those payments should be calculated and to the fact that they should be distributed to any taxing jurisdiction in which we have utility assets located. So for electric and gas, we calculate based on state law, based on our net plant values, but also there's what's called a Part 2 to that, and it's based upon our average operating margins. So for electric and gas, those payments are a little bit larger because they've got two components to them. The other big difference, and it's why we have Resolution 1500 today, is the fact that state law stipulates that not only does this board have to approve, but it calls out what is our governing authority, which would step back to City Council. So in this instance, City Council must approve via resolution before payments can be distributed. And once that occurs, those payments can be distributed the last day of June. Fiber, our newest operating division, very similar to electric. However, state law is written in a different section of the TCA for fiber payments. There's a specific call out in fiber that a fiber utility should not pay more than a private fiber entity. So unlike electric, which includes that operating margin, for fiber, we only have to calculate on our plant values. That keeps us from paying more than an AT&T or Comcast or private provider. Similar to electric, this accounts for the fact that it must be sent through City Council for distribution, and also these are paid on the last day of June. So as you can see, different means by which these are paid, approval by this board, and then approval via resolution through City Council. All right, so we'll look at a little bit at the payments by division. As you can see here, in total $32 million. That's divided out by division here. Electric, being our largest asset base, pays the most, and pilots coming in at $17.1 million this year. Gas is a little over $6 million. And then water and wastewater payments, which are only paid to the city of Knoxville, those come in at 2.7 and almost $6 million for the wastewater payments. Fiber, very small asset base. Those assets are held by the electric division, only $15,000, and that number really shouldn't grow that much over time. It will grow, but not significantly. So in total, like I said, about $32 million that we'll distribute through the divisions. When we look at the payments by taxing jurisdiction, as is customary, the city of Knoxville receives the largest amount About 70% of our pilots go to the city of Knoxville, and that totals $22.5 million this year. Knox County, $8.3 million. And you'll notice here you can really see the impact of that equalization rate reduction. Equalization rate went down about 28% in Knox County this year, thus pushing both of those payments down a pretty considerable amount. Conversely, when you look at the external counties, you can really see the impact of our fiber rollout in both Union and Granger County. Those asset bases are up this year, thus more taxes in those taxing jurisdictions. In total, about $1.1 million paid to the outside counties. All right, I've talked pretty quickly here. I know we got a lot on the agenda today, but before I go to the actual resolution itself, any questions?
Just one quick question. The equalization calculation, is that still every 4 years?
They adjust that, I think it is every 4 years, and generally when that happens, if it's tracked backwards, we will get that benefit. Fortunately, that was this year. Other questions before the actual resolution? All right. Moving forward with Resolution 1500, this is a request from this body to City Council to set for distribution, fulfilling state law, the amount of $23,244,154. That represents payments for KUB's electric, gas, and fiber divisions.
Is there a motion and a second to approve Resolution 1500 on first and final reading?
Motion to approve?
Are there any members of the public who would like to address the board on this particular resolution? Seeing none, Mr. Coley, would you please call the roll for the vote on Resolution 1500 on first and final reading?
Commissioner Caballero.
Aye.
Commissioner Feinbaum.
Aye.
Commissioner Gibson. Commissioner Hamilton.
Aye.
Commissioner Herbert.
Aye.
Commissioner Pickett. Commissioner Simpson Brown.
Aye.
Resolution 1500 has passed on first and final reading.
Thank you. I'd like to recognize Gabe again.
Yes, thank you very much. Resolution 1501 will be presented by Aaron Gill, our Vice President of Sustainability and Government Relations. This is one of our third project of the Generation Flexibility Project with TVA that we're going to present to you. But it's a biomass project. It's really unique, and it's ready to go into effect here shortly. So Aaron, please give them that update. Thank you.
I think we'll take a break after this one, and I won't see you to the new year. So, as you recall, we've been working through a series of projects to execute our option under TVA's flexibility program. These are all really financially beneficial to our customers. This one is particularly interesting because it will fill a gap in that financial opportunity while we're waiting for some of our larger solar projects to come online. So this is that first line. Again, it's a very short-term project, but it is one that is ready to go upon execution of this contract. We will be using, for a short term, the bulk of our flexibility volume that's available. The financial savings are quite a bit less than the relative scale of other projects, but again, these are dollars that will begin flowing immediately and help us financially while we're waiting on those longer-term projects. These are all charts you've seen before, but I'm happy to recap any questions. You have seen this slide before too, and this describes a two-part agreement that we will need in order to ensure that we have both an agreement with the generator and provider of the electricity that we're purchasing from, as well as an agreement with TVA to compensate us for the value of that electricity to the grid. So the resolution contemplates two agreements, one being the power purchase agreement with the developer and the other being the flexibility option PPA or the FAPA where we sell to TVA. Both of these work together to create net savings to our customers. So a few details of this particular project. This is, again, designed to fill the gap. It'll be short term and it will stagger down as our solar projects come online. The electricity is produced by an existing generation facility located in Mississippi. This is a pretty unique project, as Gabe mentioned, wherein a large industrial plant has a biomass residue from their process. They use that energy-rich biomass to generate electricity that then we will be purchasing. So it is a renewable resource. It is qualified under TVA's program, but it is an existing facility that's quite, advantageous to both the electricity system as well as, of course, this industrial partner. We'll start with a maximum available capacity of 32 megawatts. That is our TVA allocation without the solar multiplier effect factored in. Since this is not solar, we'll ultimately stage that down in our final year to 16 megawatts. And the way that we've structured the price with our partner is that we will compensate them 90% of what we receive from TVA. So this is a benefit in that we have very little risk exposure financially. At the same time, again, we're passing through the majority of that benefit to them and retaining that 10%. We do have some price floors and some price ceilings built in, again, for our protection as well as theirs, but again, we're estimating on an annual basis that we'll save about $780,000 on average per year while we're under this contract. From start to finish, if we can execute upon your approval today, we'll have about 3.5 years, we expect, with this partner. At the end of that term is when we would expect our final solar project to be live. There are options for extension should we see the need to extend and continue to fill a gap for a bit. But all that said, I'll pause there and see if there are any questions before the resolution.
I have a question, Aaron. Are there other utilities that are taking advantage of this international paper situation?
We have heard from this partner that there is some other interest. I wouldn't be able to speak specifically as to where they're at in that contracting process, but we have heard that they are open to that, at least in one other case. There are also, I'll mention, some additional existing providers that have been historical partners of TVA, and we understand that several local power companies across the valley are pursuing similar types of partnerships with those entities, but I can't speak to those details other than to say we're very excited that this opportunity was kind of found its way to us early enough to get in on this opportunity. All right. So no other questions. I'll outline what Resolution 1501 would authorize. So again, two parts here. It would first authorize the execution of that power purchase agreement to produce the electricity from international paper. It would also authorize execution of that flexibility option, PPA, to sell that electricity to TVA and permit our president and CEO to adjust those contracts to get them over the line to execution, all to our benefit of KUB and our customers. And that will take effect upon your approval.
Is there a motion and a second to approve Resolution 1501 on first and final reading?
Second.
Are there any members of the public who would like to address the board on this particular resolution? Seeing none, Mr. Coley, would you please call the roll for the vote on Resolution 1501 on first and final reading?
Yes, Commissioner Caballero.
Aye.
Commissioner Feinbaum.
Aye.
Commissioner Gibson.
Aye.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Aye.
Commissioner Herbert.
Aye.
Commissioner Pickett. Commissioner Simpson-Brown.
Aye.
Resolution 1501 is passed on first and final reading.
Thank you. Now I'd like to recognize Gabe for his president's report.
Yes, thank you, Commissioners. Thank you, Chair. As you know, workforce development and retention is a huge initiative for us this year, has been for a while. We've done a lot of work in this area, especially when it comes to including having a culture of inclusion. It's a big part of who we talk about this all the time. We do a lot of training. I want to recognize Deanna Unger, our Director of HR, to give you an update on what we've done so far this year and what we're going to look to do in the future. So thank you, Deanna.
Thank you. I'm excited for the opportunity to share about something near and dear to my heart, and that is talent. And really want to give you guys an update of not just the strategic initiative, but several other things that we're doing in the human resources areas. As we all know, if we're an employer, the war on talent is still with us, and so we're going to talk a lot about how we're looking to recruit and retain for the workforce of the future. So earlier this year, senior staff did a SWOT analysis to really identify strategic initiatives. And one of the items that was top of mind is people. And that's something that is not going away, but that led to the development of the strategic initiatives that you can see on this slide. And I've highlighted in green that in these small sentences, there's a body of work there. So looking at attracting, retaining, creating a more inclusive work culture, looking at our leadership bench, succession planning. So there's a laundry list here that we'll unpack some of the highlights today. But one thing that we did do is form committees of directors and VPs to really help us provide direction, give us feedback on these efforts. So this is not decisions or new initiatives coming straight out of HR and in a silo, but we really have buy-in across the organization on what matters and what we need to think about for our employees and the workforce of the future. Before we look at FY25, FY26, and future efforts, I want to camp out a little bit on what we're already doing and have been doing for a while. I know that in prior board meetings, the topic of finding applicants and recruiting comes up frequently. That's something, again, a challenge that all of us face. We know the talent market is shrinking. We also know that Knoxville, the age group between 25 and 55, has also not grown as much as some of our surrounding competitors in the region. And so we still need to put our foot on the gas on every recruiting effort that is available to us. And we'll talk on the next slide a little bit more on the data behind these recruiting efforts. But just in general, we always use posting sites, whether that is specific to an industry or Indeed. And we look at LinkedIn sourcing as well. That's something we've become much more aggressive in, and where we can do direct outreach to applicants that we think would fit our needs. We also want to maintain a community presence. So career fairs, networking events, any time that we can be out in the community to really advertise our brand as an employer, that's something very important to us. But one thing we'll see on the next slide is you have a lot of things with internet presence and events that provide our applications, but one thing that's truly important is building partnerships. And you'll hear me use the word partner a lot in the upcoming slides, because where we really feel like we can seek out talent and be more proactive is building a pipeline, building a bridge in certain spaces to really niche positions that we have here at KUB. I also want to draw your attention that in your folder you have a handout that talks about these recruiting partnerships in more detail and unpack some of these that are on this slide specifically. Those pipeline partnerships, like the University of Tennessee Business Analytics Program, we knew that we have a lot of IT needs in the future. We're going to need data analysts for that need in the coming years. The Business Analytics Program is focused on developing those students with the skill sets that we see we'll need in the future. So that has been something over the past 2 summers. We've had 2 cohorts of summer internships, and then also that has led to multiple full-time hires for us to build the brand new business analytics department. And that's been a key focus for us. Pellissippi State Community College has a water quality degree program that we feel we can leverage to help our plant operator pipeline. And so we've had successes there, as well as, of course, University of Tennessee Engineering. They have a program that they've rebranded recently called the TEN program, Tennessee Engineering Network. And that helps us find gas engineers, civil engineers. It also helps us find computer engineers. And those are all the pipelines that we're spending a little bit more time focused on over the past couple of years. As I mentioned, even though I'm passionate about people, I pull out numbers every now and then. Not as much as Chris over there. But we do have some numbers that I wanted to share that reflect our efforts of fiscal year 2024. So we had over 7,000 applications come in that period of time. And we also went to over 70 job fairs or recruiting events, whether it be a networking night or whether it be we went to UGA to look more regionally to find applicants. But those are something that, again, maintain that presence throughout the community, as I mentioned. Those total applications, we have an in-depth process to find the candidate that we ultimately hire. And it might involve phone screens, panel interviews, department tours. So in this same time period, we had over 1,000 panel interviews. But that, we're proud to say, we still have a cumulative time to fill of 40 days over that time period. This current fiscal year, we're tracking at about 38 days time to fill. So all of those efforts, we rely on our departments who are knowledgeable about the skill set they're looking for, and they can help us find a quality candidate through this process. So all of that work culminates for 236 full-time hires. 165 of them were external to KUB, but actually out of those 236, we had 71 that applied internally. So even though we posted it externally, it was an internal candidate seeking a new opportunity in KUB. And that's 22% of those jobs. So I think that's a testament to, again, how we provide internal growth. You see it among our leadership, but also among our other staff members. We're always looking to provide new opportunities. Before I move past this, are there any questions? Okay. That was talking a little bit about where we are in the recruiting space. I wanted to provide a brief update where we are in the retention space. So one thing that was good to see is our turnover rates have improved in FY24 from the past 2 years. So I think all of you have probably heard the buzz of a great resignation. Then there was the buzz term of the great stay. We also are seeing those turnover rates reduce and allow us to really see some progress in the retention area so far. One thing is when anyone leaves, we do a diligent exit interview process so that we can hear what those reasons are that cause them to seek another employer. Salary and career growth, no surprise there, are some aspects of top reasons for leaving. The good news is that 84% of those individuals who are leaving for another employer would still recommend KUB. And so that does still confirm we're doing a lot of the good stuff, but there are areas that we can tweak to keep them here longer. Efforts that have been going on for quite some time in this retention space. We have annual salary and benefit benchmarking that we conduct to continue to maintain our competitive space in those areas, as well as a performance review and merit increase process that demonstrates our commitment to salary growth for our employees. Employee recognition, we've done some new training this year for our leaders about keeping that front of mind, making that meaningful experience, whether it be through e-cards or whether it be through honoring service through a service awards luncheon. And we do understand that while benefits and salary are key elements of job fulfillment, there's also a lot that goes with your work environment and the value that you feel being here every day. We have really focused on our onboarding process through more training, and that is something that we have seen in the 90-day surveys we conduct with new hires. We're getting 98% positive results there. That shows, again, we're trying to make that good first impression that hopefully can create a foundation that they will stay with KUB long term. So in both of these areas of recruiting and retaining, there are some things that we're seeing recently have worked well for us that we will continue before I talk about some new areas of focus tied to this strategic initiative. So again, we are seeing some progress in the retention and our recruiting, and that we're maintaining a 96% staffing level. So that is something that we know we're filling those openings as we get them and as there's a need there to maintain that we're close to fully staffed and feel fully staffed. Our student to full-time pipeline, when I mentioned those pipeline partnerships, we continue to see, and there are elements of a lot of people in this room that might have been a student once at KUB, and it's created a full-time opportunity for them. We continue to see that at being a strong pipeline for us. We also feel the applicant experience is positive. We've had 92% acceptance rate of offers, and we are also looking at data on the 8% that aren't accepting and what their reasons might be. And as I mentioned on our stats slide, we do see internal growth. When I talk about why people are leaving, it's for more growth. So we continue to want to focus on how we can provide more of that internal growth, that they'll find maybe their new career here at KUB versus somewhere else. Our apprentice programs, I've been here in the past and talked about some of the successes in those spaces. Our line worker journeyman pipeline comes from our line worker apprentice program and has for decades. Right now we have 18 of them, which is our largest class that we've had, but that is something that is really a pipeline that will serve us for years as we're looking for that utility workforce of the future and providing 24/7 response to our customers. It's our best bet to grow them here and develop them here. We also, in 2021, created a utility apprentice program, and that was focused not in our overhead construction department, but in other departments across KUB, such as underground construction or our transportation department, our system maintenance department. And so we have had 8 utility apprentices from those programs go from the apprenticeship into a long-term permanent hire with us. So that's another area we hope to grow as we're looking to continue to open doors for utility careers for those that may have little to no experience. As we're looking at some new areas to focus on for FY25 and beyond, and we have been doing a little bit more data and research on roles that we have had trouble filling, whether it be we've had to post them multiple times or when we've posted it, we've had a limited applicant pool. And those are areas that, similar to the business analytics partnership, where we knew we'd need data analysts, we needed a partnership. We're looking at, are there new areas we can explore to help us with these type of positions? So plant operations, shift work is demanding. We have a complex plant. And so we really need to look at maybe that Pellissippi program, the water quality degree program, or other sources where we can continue to focus on that pipeline to serve our customers 24/7. And we also have seen with financial analysts, that's a need that we have in multiple departments across KUB. But we realize that maybe there's less accountant majors that are graduating from area schools. Are there other areas that we can build that pipeline for the financial needs that we'll have in the future? We are seeing these two right now, but every quarter we're committed to look at what are those positions that we've had some trouble filling, what are those niche skill sets we might need in the future, and then what are those intentional partnerships we can build connected to that. One item, when you think about the utility workforce of the future, you think about the skilled trade gap and that institutional knowledge, all of the unique tasks and responsibilities our employees have that are around the clock. So shift workers as well as that skilled trade component. We feel our utility apprentice program can continue to grow and build in that space. But we have formed a shift work task force to really focus on what are some additional initiatives we might want to roll out to retain those workers. And so that's something that we're talking about now through the rest of this fiscal year of are there new tools and ideas that we have to look at that workforce specifically. We are in a great opportunity right now with Knox County and their 865 academies. And when you think about the workforce of the future, it starts today. It starts in those high schools. It starts probably before that, of really planting that seed that a utility career can be a dream for these students. So we are looking for a lot of the ways that we can support those initiatives with 865 academies, whether it be department industry experiences, whether it be job shadowing, internships. Our teen work program has done a lot to work with high schoolers, and we just continue to see how that will grow and a way that we can really help our community in that space. One thing about how we are trying to keep employees here, we have exit interviews, we have 90-day surveys. That's just a small piece of the employee voice of what keeps them here at KUB or what might cause them to leave. And so we do feel like we want to modify our survey strategy to increase the way that we're hearing the employee voice in the future. Another key component of recruiting and retaining, of course, as Gabe mentioned, is our commitment to an inclusive culture. And I think we've come multiple times to talk about the training series that we do in the DEI space, but that's something that's never one and done. It becomes a part of who we are. It becomes a part of our everyday. And this year specifically, we've had some continued activities and training that have been focused in different sections and topics. Like generational diversity, True Colors is a personality diversity exercise. And then also we did our first inclusion and belonging leadership breakfast, and that's the picture that you see there on the right. We had panelists who really were able to speak about their world and DEI in the workforce and help us learn from them. And that's something that we're looking forward to doing every year. We also want to get out more in the community and have cultural experiences. For our management staff, we went to Beck a couple of years ago, and then also in spring 2025, we're scheduled to visit Centro Hispano at their new location that I'm very excited about. And then those are things that we continue just because it's not just here at KUB, but it's where we sit in the community as far as our inclusive culture. Frontline staff engagement has been a priority as well, and we're looking at creative ways that Tanisha Baker and Amy Kennedy can really be boots on the ground, literally. They are going out in the field, have had multiple field visits on the rainy day, the cold day, no matter what, and they're building that relationship at every level of our employee workforce. Department meetings, team building activities, just really building that relationship to have a foundation of trust and continuing to make it at every level of our organization. Another component of that very first slide, as I said, there were lots of green highlights, but leadership development and succession planning, and those go hand in hand. So back in 2014, we instituted what we called LDP, which was a leadership development program that had a small group of selected individuals that we hope would create a pipeline for future management positions. That is something that we had multiple iterations of that. COVID came upon us in 2020, and then we shifted our focus more to some DEI training in the following years. But we're happy that we were able to bring that back this year, and you are able to meet those individuals through multiple board meetings, and we're excited that they're here today. But how we got to the list of individuals that would be selected for this group was part of a succession planning exercise that we also plan to do every single year that helps us identify candidates and really rebuild the bench and focus on that bench of developing new leaders of the future. This program has both internal education, such as learning more about our KUB business processes or more about initiatives and our servant leadership values, but it also has external education like you can see in the photo here. Chalmers Brothers, a consultant, came in with some nuggets of leadership wisdom and very excited, very dynamic trainer that helps us all develop our leadership skills. We also can't forget that all of us in management still have room to grow. And so that is something that we are taking a more intentional approach as well, of whether it's our newest managers that we want to have an onboarding program that spans 12 months. The newest managers from last January, we've spent 12 months with them just helping them learn more about HR policy, financial strategy, and DEI, recruiting and retention. And then also for those of us in management, we're providing more learning opportunities, whether it be bringing in a guest speaker or whether it be a 30-minute session with just our managers on our conflict of interest policy or other areas. That is a great way to transfer knowledge, and that's something that we are making more structured learning opportunities for that type of content too. So looking forward, you will hear from us again. As I mentioned, we were focused on FY25 and really what new strategic focuses we needed. And so that's something that we will have continued work on and be able to talk about as we get near to completing some of those deliverables. But really the task at hand is building a plan for the future, whether that be 1 year, 3 year, 5 years, or 10 years, and how we're continuing to put building blocks in place for the workforce of the future. We also know that whether it's in our community with Knoxville Chamber, with 865 Academies, we are all somewhat in the same space competing for talent, but we are all trying to achieve the same goal, which is build our workforce in Knoxville, help economic growth, help workforce development, and that's something that all of our efforts we hope will continue to align in supporting not just where we are in our KUB and our focus on talent, but where we are as a community. Does anyone have any questions?
Great work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deanna. Next, Commissioners, I want to introduce Kurt Stafford, our Vice President of Engineering, give you an update on one of our largest projects. As you know, we're doing some major upgrades at our Mark B. Whitaker water treatment plant, one of the largest projects in the history of KUB to basically increase our capacity and give us redundancy at our water plant. I was able to tour it a couple months ago. It's an amazing amount of work. It's getting closer to finish. Probably less than a year away from finishing it. I want to give you an update on this project because it is a very critical need for us to make sure we have high quality water for our customers as Knoxville continues to grow. And I want to give you an update on that project. So thank you, Kurt.
Yeah, thanks, Gabe. Appreciate that. And really excited to be able to talk to this project or talk about this project to the board today because I know we've talked about it at some long range plan meetings and we actually you know, we had some renderings and stuff, but the neat thing is we got a lot of pictures to show you today, so I think it'll be a very neat sort of visual tour. We actually have a video that'll come a little bit later that'll kind of show it from above, but really excited to talk a little bit more about this, you know, because it's something that we've discussed a lot in the past. So kind of want to start talking about this, just give an overview, and we want to talk about the filters project in terms of the water supply master plan. So we've talked a lot about the water supply master plan over the years, and really what that is building critical redundancy and resiliency at our Mark B. Whitaker plant by building a second treatment train and also eliminating any potential single points of failure in the treatment processes. So, you know, kind of what Gabe mentioned before, you know, this project is the cornerstone of the water supply master plan. Once we're finished, we'll have 6 new water filters that'll be able to treat up to 38 million gallons of water per day, which will be a really big thing. It's also the largest project in KUB history from a cost perspective. So it's been a really neat project. You can see on the right, we've got a phasing chart there, and that kind of shows the different high-level projects within the water supply master plan. I kind of, as I mentioned before, you can see that the filters are kind of the cornerstone. That's phase 2. It really sets the stage for all the phase 3 projects, which will wrap up and close out the water supply master plan. So kind of want to talk about progress to date, where are we at? You know, as Gabe just mentioned, we've got less than a year until we get this thing started back up. We're really excited about that. Construction started back in early last year, back in February of 2023 is when we started doing. So Bowen Construction is the contractor. They mobilized out there, started doing the work. You can see this photo right here on the right is a photo that was probably taken about a month ago. We've made a lot of progress, and we'll talk about the different parts and components of the project. But I want to talk about where we're at from a sort of a financial standpoint. So we've actually built out about 65% of the project to date. So it's a $66 million project. We've built out about $45 million of those dollars so far. I also want to highlight, and we've highlighted this before, that we did receive $25 million of ARPA grant funding for this project, which was a very big deal. It was helpful. It was kind of split between the city of Knoxville and Knox County. And to date, we've built out about $20 million of those grants. So we're on track to get that built out by the end of the project. And like I said before, we're on track for completion in November 2025, so we're less than a year out from having this actually started up and running. Another good way to visualize sort of progress to date is looking at aerial photographs. And one of the neat things that Bowen does every month for us is when they submit their pay application, they actually take a drone photograph from above the site, which shows progress. So this photo on the left is from February 2023. And you can see there's not really much going on out there. Bowen is mobilizing to start the job. So they're getting construction trailers and things out there, but they haven't really started a lot of the work. Fast forward, you know, a year and a half or so, the photo on the right shows a lot of different things going on. And you can see the clarifiers is something we'll talk a little bit more about. But this is like the process that we've talked about before in the past, and that actually filters out a lot of the sediment out of the water before it goes to the filters. This is kind of the site for the filters project. This is the main filter building, the wash water tank, and the backwash tank, and then the wash water tank. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but just kind of want to show those, just to show a lot of the progress we've made over the past year and a half. So, you know, obviously, first thing that Bowen did when they went out there is moved a lot of dirt. You know, it's old General Shell property. There was a lot of dirt to move around. They kind of piled it off to one side. So they started working on the foundation, so they brought the grade down to a certain level where they're going to start pouring concrete. And one of the first things that we did was install micro piles. And what micro piles are is a foundation that's drilled down into bedrock that actually supports the building. You can see on the left side of the photograph on the left, one of the things we did for the project is we made a three-dimensional model of the building. And what that really does is it helps us visualize the piping and some of the components, make sure everything fits inside the building. And you can also look at the architectural features on the outside and just visualize it. You can see down below the building, you can see all those piles that are sticking out down below it. I guess over the course of the whole project, we installed more than 200 micro piles down in the ground. They go in about 20 feet down into bedrock to support the building. You can see those visually, and on the right, you can actually see those completed micro piles right before they pour the slab. And so they stick up a couple of feet above where the slab will be, and they're actually buried in the concrete slab, and that actually supports the building. So kind of a neat visual there for the foundation. Another neat thing that happens between the buildings, so water flows from the clarifier down into the filters building by gravity. And so we connected those two with a 54-inch pipe, and this is a photograph on the left of the connection for the 54-inch pipe at the filters building. One of the kind of the uniquenesses of that is that last piece of pipe going into the building is actually a 50-foot specially made piece of pipe that has no joints in it. It's held up by or supported by a concrete block, and that's just to make sure that doesn't shift at any point, or drop or anything like that. On the right, you can see, and just to put a scale on this thing right here, you can see there's two construction workers working down in the trench. You can see that pipe's just about as tall as they are, so it's a pretty big pipe. So kind of a neat thing going on there. And that's actually one of the 3 connections to the clarifiers. So there's 3 clarifiers, so each one of those has a 54-inch connection that feeds into the filter building. So kind of now I want to talk a little bit about the filter building and the pipe gallery. We say there's 6 new filters being constructed. And this area right here in the filter building is where those 6 filters are being constructed. Bowen, in this photograph right here, is pouring the walls for the 6 filters. This front section up here that they've just recently poured the slab, you can see it's kind of a little bit darker color because it hasn't dried out yet, is actually where we're going to have a laboratory and a control room for the building. So the operators will be sitting there, they'll be able to take samples and be able to adjust processes and things like that kind of at real time. This photograph on the right here is sort of taken from looking down the center of the building. That's where the filter gallery would be. Right now it's open, but eventually when we finish that, there'll be full pipes that'll be feeding into and out of the filters. The shot on the left is just another photograph of the filter gallery taken just a little bit later, maybe a couple weeks later. They're actually closing in the walls on the side right there. They're getting ready to pour that. The photograph on the right is a visual from the 3-dimensional model that we talked about. And really this is critical just to make sure you fit all the piping into the building. So kind of the way the filters work is water comes in from the clarifiers, it goes up to the top and actually follows by gravity and goes down through the filters and through the filter media. So it all works by gravity. Essentially the water filters down through the media and then it's pumped out of the bottom of the building. But that's a good visual for what it will look like when it's eventually finished. So I want to talk a little bit about the backwash tank. And what the backwash tank is, it's an elevated tank. And when the filters, they can run for a certain amount of time and then they need to be cleaned. And so there's 6 filters. So when one of the individual filters needs to be cleaned, the backwash tank will provide the water, and it's actually elevated, so it works under gravity. It'll push water back up through the filters and clean them, and then that water will get sent off to the sewer. So this backwash tank is kind of a critical piece of the project. And kind of going from left to right on these photographs, on the left you can see that it's a steel tank and it's welded together, so they kind of pick it up with a crane and they have welders up there and they're welding it together. If you can see off in the distance, there's actually the whole top of the tank has been assembled, and they got a crane to move that up there and welded it all together. Sort of the shot in the middle right there is like the whole tank put together. It's been welded. You can see there's a curtain on the ground right there. That curtain can be raised because when they sandblast the welds or they need to clean off the surface of the tank, they wanted to make sure they didn't get any of that grit and stuff like that over in the clarifiers, because that's a real critical thing. You don't want that stuff interfering with the treatment processes. So they use that. They're very careful with that. And then on the right, you can see kind of the finished tank right there, and that shows the color of that actually matches the mortar for the brick of the building, so it'll kind of blend in with the building from an architectural standpoint. The wash water tank is another component. So once you wash the filters, all that water comes out. It'll float into this sort of equalization tank. It can hold up to 3 filter washings, and really each of the washings is about 100,000 gallons, which is equivalent to about 5 backyard pools. So it can hold a lot of water in there, but really what it does is that flows back into it. It actually holds it until it can flow out to the sewer. So this will eventually, the backwash, the water will flow into the sewer. This is actually in ground. You can see the photo on the left. You can see that was kind of at the beginning of construction when they built the tank before they actually backfilled around it to bring it up to grade. So this is the video I was telling you about that's from the air. So one of the things, we always talk a lot about technology, when to use technology and utilize it. So one of the neat things our communications group has done is they've taken a lot of photographs or videos and photographs of the project, and we've used it for a lot of internal communications, things like that. But I want to show this because it kind of pulls together all those parts and pieces that we just talked about. And so when this video was taken, Bowen is actually working on the roof. You can see they've got a crane out there. They're lifting up stuff to build that front roof over the laboratory and the control room. Then they've also got, you can see on the right, they've got concrete trucks backing up. They're pumping concrete into concrete pours inside the building. So they've got that concrete pump that pumps it into certain areas in the building. So I thought that was kind of a neat way to visualize sort of some of the stuff that we talked about. I want to talk a little bit about operations. Once we finish up the project, how's it going to be run? What's going to happen with that? When we're doing startup, we're planning on having a senior operator there to kind of learn the whole process. And at a later date, once it gets started up and finished, then he will train operators that will be working on the building. Once it's in service, we'll be operating it 24/7, so somebody will be working there all the time. The new laboratory will be there, I mentioned before. That'll allow us to do, take samples of the water and make adjustments as needed real time, which will be really neat. Also, they'll have a control room there, and if you're familiar with the main the main building. There's a SCADA control room there. They'll be able to control SCADA from this new building too. It'll be able to control the plants and also the distribution system. So the operator will be able to control it. You can see the screen up on the left, or the screen up on the right there. That's a kind of a visual of our SCADA system. And really what that does is it lets operators remotely control and monitor the system, the plant processes. They can turn off pumps, they can turn on pumps, valves, close valves and things like that. Lets them operate the system, so they'll be able to do that remotely from this filter building. And then finally, just want to wrap up talking about upcoming milestones. So how do we go from today to September and get this thing in service? So there's really 4 main milestones. The first one is the completion of the pipe gallery that we looked at earlier. That'll happen next month in January. And then we're doing Bowen is going to be running a 42-inch pipe. We call it out to the intermediate tie-in. So that 42-inch line is one of the last places that water goes before it gets pumped out into our system. So that's essentially a connection from the filter building out to our high service pump before we pump it out in the distribution system. In May of 2025, we'll finish up the architectural and structural parts of the filter building. And then the next month after that, we'll start testing the filters. So there's a certain number of tests they got to do to start it up. They got to make sure that it's filtering right, it's breaking the filters and stuff like that. And then in September, they'll go online. So that's kind of the timeline that we have going up till startup. And that's kind of an overview. Does anybody have any questions?
I'd like to recognize Commissioner Caballero for the nominating committee announcement.
Thank you so much. Every January, the board elects officials as required by the city charter. The nominating committee met today and voted to nominate the following slate of officers for 2025. Chair Cynthia Gibson, Vice Chair Claudia Caballero, Secretary Mark Walker. The election of officers will be conducted in January of 2025 as required by the charter.
Any questions? Thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to address the board today? Yes.
Thank you, Board. My name is Cody Smith of Smithville Homes. I'm here today to discuss our Belltown development and ongoing issues we're having with KUB on the project. I provided a handout with a copy of my speech, a timeline, pictures, and some exhibits to help you all follow along. You've got my speech here, and in the handout, the front page is a concept plan of Belltown showing you the entire scope of the project. There are 2 exhibits after that I will reference here shortly, some photos I will reference, and then a brief timeline for you all. Belltown is a large-scale, walkable, mixed-use community located on West Emory Road in Carnes. Belltown has approval from Knox County for up to 750 single-family homes, 400 apartments, 240 townhomes, and 664,000 square feet of commercial area. As of today, we have constructed and platted 169 single-family lots. We have built and closed 78 homes and have 57 homes under construction. We are currently constructing our commercial area, Belltown Commons, where we have a signed lease with Covenant Health for a primary care facility, Soccer Taco, and an interest from a number of other local businesses. KUB is the provider for power, fiber, and gas in Belltown. In fact, in a previous board meeting this year, Belltown was mentioned by your gas department as an area of significant potential growth. Unfortunately, Belltown is currently nearing a standstill because KUB does not have sufficient electric capacity to serve it. On April 14th, 2023, prior to breaking ground, we met with KUB new service representatives to review our concept and initiate planning for a comprehensive electric design for the entire project. We broke ground on Belltown on May 8th, 2023, with KUB aware of the development scope and timeline. On June 29th, 2023, we received the first draft of a comprehensive electric plan. The design we received is Exhibit 1 in your handout. You will see that KUB had designed the full scope of the north side of the property, which is our single-family side, and was aware of everything on the south side of the property. You will also see the date on there of June 29th, 2023 at the bottom. Despite continuous collaboration with KUB throughout late 2023 and early 2024, it wasn't until April 19th, 2024, over a year after our initial meeting, that KUB Engineering informed us of a capacity issue. By this point, we had 73 lots constructed and platted, 10 homes were built and closed, with 68 other homes under construction. Our $2.5 million amenity package was nearly complete. In your package, we have provided some aerial photos towards the back that give you an idea of where we were at in June of 2024. This is just a month and a half or so after we were informed of the capacity issue. You can see significant development, significant building, and significant progress there. When we sought an explanation for this delayed discovery during a meeting in October, KUB representatives declined to comment. To date, no justification has been provided for why this issue was not identified earlier. On May 7th, 2024, KUB informed us that their capacity could only support 125 homes and that a costly three-phase power extension from West Beaver Creek Drive would be required. This extension, estimated at $285,000, would need to be funded entirely by Smith-Built. KUB cited their policy, which places the burden of such upgrades on the developer, including obtaining necessary easements and covering 100% of the costs. In this meeting, KUB also claimed they could provide previous examples of developers funding similar three-phase extensions to residential projects. Despite 3 formal email requests, no such examples have been provided to us. This lack of transparency raises significant concerns about the consistency and fairness of KUB's policies. On July 9th, 2024, we met with KUB leadership, including Chris Hood, John Petrowski, and CFO Mark Walker. This was a productive and good conversation. While we disagreed with the premise that the capacity upgrade should be our responsibility, KUB proposed a compromise. KUB would waive capping our electric and fiber hookup refunds for the apartments and commercial buildings to help offset the costs of the three-phase extension. This proposal was verbally supported, and we were directed to work with the new service representatives to finalize the details.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
I'm sorry, your 5-minute time has expired.
Can I request to the board that I've got just a few minutes left to finish, if somebody would support that?
I would be okay with that.
I mean, if you're gonna just read what is down here, I think all of us could read that. Are you reading this document, sir?
Yes, ma'am, I am, but I've got 2 minutes to wrap it up, and I'd be happy to answer any questions
I think
afterwards.
all of us can read.
So you
I'm
have
not in
some
favor
questions?
of extending it.
Do you have any questions that you'd like to ask so far?
No, I mean, I would just say I appreciate you coming here and raising this issue with the board. We'll certainly be able to, now that we have some context, we'll review this and work with Gabe and everybody at KUB to talk about this and see what next steps are.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We will take it under advisement. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, board.
Now, I would like to share that Mayor Kincannon selected Phyllis Nichols for the new commissioner position, and City Council voted on Ms. Nichols' election at their meeting on Tuesday, December 10th. I would like to thank Mayor Kincannon and City Council for their consideration, and I would like to congratulate and welcome Ms. Nichols. I know her experience and qualifications will be an asset to this board, and she will represent KUB's customers well. We appreciate her willingness to serve the community in this way. Are there any other announcements before we adjourn?
Yes, I have one actually. We have one more official action that's not on your agenda, Chair Simpson Brown. This was to honor you for your 7 years of service. So I want to ask our legal counsel, Mr. Coley, to read a resolution that we've created honoring your 7 years of service and the things you've accomplished in that 7 years. And I want to thank you so much for the what you've done to make KUB better. So, Mr. Coley.
My pleasure. This is Resolution 1502, a resolution of the Knoxville Utilities Board honoring Adrian Simpson Brown, who is concluding service as a commissioner. Get comfortable. Whereas Adrian Simpson Brown became a member of this board in January 2018 and now has served faithfully for 7 years. And whereas Commissioner Simpson Brown's professional accomplishments, including being the first African-American female ever appointed as chief of the United States Probation Office for the Eastern District of Tennessee, have been an inspiration and positive example for many of KUB's employees and our community. And whereas Commissioner Simpson Brown dedicated her time and expertise in leading KUB's Board of Commissioners as board chair for 2 years, vice chair for 2 years, and past chair of the board's nominating committee, and whereas Commissioner Simpson Brown helped KUB manage the unprecedented circumstances of the COVID-19 global pandemic and its impact on customers, supporting assistance programs which aided more than 18,000 customers with nearly $13 million in relief funds. And whereas during Commissioner Simpson Brown's tenure, KUB established its Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Initiative, which continues to promote inclusivity and equal opportunity in every facet of the organization. And whereas during her tenure as a commissioner, the board established a community advisory panel to represent the diverse viewpoints of KUB's customers. And whereas during her tenure, the board voted to establish KUB's fiber division, enabling KUB to provide high-speed, affordable internet service to customers, including those who were previously under or unserved, and to establish the Connect Ed program to provide free internet service to income-eligible student households. And whereas Commissioner Simpson Brown has supported KUB's lower income assistance initiatives, including weatherization for more than 2,900 homes since 2015. And whereas during Commissioner Simpson Brown's tenure, KUB redefined its core values in a new blueprint outlining our dedication to our customers, our community, our co-workers, and our culture. And whereas Commissioner Simpson Brown has supported continuation of utility system infrastructure investment through KUB's Century 2 program to ensure essential services are safely and reliably delivered to KUB customers. And whereas during Commissioner Simpson Brown's tenure, KUB has made significant progress in its operations, its customer focus, its environmental stewardship, and its community impact, winning numerous awards and recognitions. And whereas Commissioner Simpson Brown's engagement in the community extends beyond her tenure on the KUB board and is reflected through her long-standing service to the Knoxville Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta sorority and volunteer work as a youth mentor. And whereas Commissioner Simpson Brown is admired for being a quiet yet strong leader who listens intently, chooses her words thoughtfully, and makes care-driven decisions. And whereas throughout Commissioner Simpson Brown's service on KUB's board, she has accomplished what she shared years ago as her inspiration for her service, to be a part of a legacy of making decisions that improves the lives of our neighbors. Now, therefore, be it hereby resolved by the Board of Commissioners of the Knoxville Utilities Board, Section 1, that this board hereby gratefully acknowledges and commends Adrian Simpson Brown for her dedicated service to KUB, its employees, customers, and our community. Section 2, that this board recognizes Commissioner Simpson Brown's meaningful and effective service and genuinely regrets that her time on KUB Board of Commissioners has concluded. And Section 3, that this resolution shall take effect from and after its passage, and that a copy shall be provided to Commissioner Simpson Brown. This resolution is passed unanimously by the signatures of all of the commissioners of Knoxville Utility Board, approved on this first and final reading, December 19th. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Is there a motion and a second to approve Revelation 1502 on the first and final reading?
Motion to approve.
Are there any members of the public who would like to address the board on this resolution? Mr. Coley, would you please call roll on the vote for Resolution 1502?
It'd be my pleasure. Commissioner Caballero.
Aye.
Commissioner Feinbaum.
Aye.
Commissioner Gibson.
Aye.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Aye.
Commissioner Herbert.
Aye.
Commissioner Pickett. And Commissioner Simpson Brown, you don't get a vote. The resolution passes unanimously.
Thank you. I just want to say this has been a tremendous experience and learning so much about what we take for granted every day, and that's clean water, reliable energy, reliable electricity. Whenever the lights go out, I always like, it's coming back on. I know they're working hard, and I've told everybody that in the community that I reach. So this is an awesome team. You have a great organization here, and you have enriched my life, my family's life, and I'm gonna miss you guys, but I'll be around. I'm coming back. Thank you. So, following the adjournment of this meeting, the board will have a lunch session that is open for the public to observe. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Congratulations.